But first, an Australian man held hostage in the Philippines has appealed for help as his captors demand a $2 million ransom. Warren Rodwell has been held by terrorists for a month. His case is the first since a parliamentary committee investigated the way the Australian government responds to kidnappings. And as Hayden Cooper reports, Foreign Affairs officials are under pressure to secure the Australians' release.
I am Warren Richard Rodwell from Australia, being held captive by this group since December 5, 2011.
From the islands of the southern Philippines, an Australian hostage fronts the camera of his captors and pleads for help.
To my family, please do whatever to raise the $2 million they are asking for my release as soon as possible. To the government, to the Filipino government, especially the government of Zamboanga Sibuguy, Honourable Rommel, I'm appealing to you, please help me from here, coordinate with my family to raise whatever money is being asked.
Warren Rodwell was kidnapped a month ago from his home on Mindanao Island. 4 gunmen posing as police stormed his house. He's now being held on the island of Basilan, a known stronghold of Abu Sayyaf.
The southern Philippines is well known as a kidnap and ransom location for foreigners.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
A ruthless army of Muslim terrorists, Abu Sayyaf usually targets Christians or foreigners from whom it believes it can profit, according to Professor Clive Williams.
Local officials had warned Rodwell that he was at risk if he remained in that area, but apparently he'd bought himself a gun and said he could look after himself, being an ex-army guy. The problem is, it doesn't matter how well organised you are, if they decide they're going to take you, they can take you.
So who is Warren Rodwell? The 53-year-old Australian is an experienced traveller. A former soldier, he's spent the past decade overseas, roaming from Asia to South America to Europe and the subcontinent. He stayed a year in India, 3 years in China teaching English at a university, before surfacing in the Philippines. He considers himself an international adventurer. During his youth, he lived for a time here as a ward of the state at Sydney's Burnside Homes. He returned 2 years ago for a brief stay.
I met him first in October 2010. He came here to start a course, do one of our intensive courses. He came across as a very confident, very charismatic man, very sure of what he wanted and what he wanted to do.
Reverend Martin Levine says Rodwell liked to challenge himself, even in dangerous locations.
He had has a very strong personality, in a sense, I suppose, kind of, I can do it. I know the answers, so I'll tell you what I think. So yeah, but I think it's part of his persona, the way in which he kind of shared himself.
Now the Filipino captors are demanding a hefty ransom for the Australian's release.
Well, the person who's allegedly holding him, which is a fellow named Perugian Dharma, he's the number 2 man on Basilan Island for Abu Sayyaf group. The number 1 guy is a fellow named Kaimundus. He's had a record of beheading people, but as far as I can ascertain, it's pretty much been anti-Christian beheadings that he's undertaken.
So what then is the strategy being applied behind these walls at the Foreign Affairs Department? Well, as in previous cases, a task force has been set up to handle the kidnapping. The Australian government won't pay a ransom and very little will be said publicly. But we do know that it's the first test of a strategy that's only recently been altered after some serious criticism from previous hostage victims.
He's going to be really in a bad place at the moment.
Nigel Brennan spent more than a year in captivity in Somalia before a ransom payment secured his release. He believes the government's involvement only prolonged his ordeal.
So then the family, after 11 months, decided to go with a private company, and 4 months later, both the Canadian citizen and myself were released. But it was hard. My family asked for help trying to facilitate the ransom amount, and the Australian government just said, look, we can't help you.
Of the response to Nigel Bredin's kidnapping.
After a Senate inquiry, the Foreign Affairs Department agreed to present families with a list of other options up front, including the private sector. 730's been told that briefing has happened, and DFAT says even if the family chooses a private contractor, consular support and advice will continue.
Look, I'm advised that, of course, our embassy is working with local authorities to do whatever they can to assist Mr Rodwell. We will deal with that in a manner that's professional and dedicated to his interests, and we won't be, of course, discussing it in the media. But, of course, our concerns are for him, and our thoughts are with his family, and the embassy will be doing everything they possibly can to ensure he's released.
The family of Warren Rodwell are refusing interviews as they contemplate what could be a harrowing and lengthy time ahead.
Look, it's an incredibly tough road to go down, and I'm sure their whole family's still probably in shock, being so early on in the stages, but there are certainly means and ways of getting a result. And look, more than happy to offer them support if they so need it.
To the Australian Embassy here in the Philippines, this is your constituent appealing for his life, his safety. If I am given my last wish is that you please help me out of here alive. Please, Madam Ambassador.
Hayden Cooper reporting.